season opener against the New York Giants. McLaurin hasn't practiced this summer, and if there were a time to get a deal done to keep alive his chances of playing in that regular season opener, this would be it. This morning, they reached agreement on a deal that will end his hold-in, allow him to get back on the practice field, and means he'll suit up week 1.
Welcome to NFL Live. The voice you just heard and the face you just saw was Adam Schefter. I'm Ryan Clark, your host today. Phil Yates and Dan O sitting with me. Dan O, listen, I've been working with you this entire offseason, and you talked about how important it was to get Terry McLaurin signed, not only for the Commanders, but for the young quarterback, Jaden Daniels. What do you think of the deal?
Massive, needed. You weren't a real contender in the division without Terry McLaurin. I also think just bring it to the football field. This offense without Terry McLaurin was playing in red zone spacing in the open field. Meaning when you play down in the red zone as an offense, everyone talks about how the field gets shrunk down. The defense only has to defend 20 yards of depth, 30 yards of depth. It would have been the case in the open field without Terry McLaurin like that. Teams would just have played so much closer to the line of scrimmage. Now with Terry back, you get the vertical presence of your offense back. The Jaden Daniels rookie season that we saw with so many of those magical throws downfield, not only the clutch ones, but that connection. It also allows Debo to live in Debo's role. It also allows the Luke McCaffrey to live in the Luke McCaffrey role. So the impact that he has on this football team and its ability to win games, I think is on par with the Jamar Chase and a Justin Jefferson because of the way that he allows that offense and specifically Jaden to push the ball downfield.
Yeah, the key point here that I love that Dan Orlovsky said is that with Terry McLaurin, everyone else gets to just focus on their own role. No one has to try to overcome anything. I always talk about this. When you can be a team where it's just do your job, you're the do your job team, you're in a great place. It's just, and then the coaching staff just gets to preach, do your job. When you do your job, when you worry about what you need to do, and you just do that and execute, boom. That's all we got to worry about. If everyone just does their job, and now the coaching staff also doesn't have to try to have other players, other people do things that are beyond what you want to normally ask them. And so now it does just allow Debo to be Debo, right? And it does allow Jaden just to be Jaden. There's no having to overcome anything. And this is what I said when we were kind of having this whole back and forth conversation about Terry McLaurin, no Terry McLaurin, what do we do? What do we do here? And it was just like, this team is a legitimate contender with Terry McLaurin. Without Terry McLaurin, they are not. They are not. They'll be a good team, and Jaden Daniels is great, and you can, work some magic with Debo, but it was always about having Terry McLaurin there, building the O-line, improving the run game, and bringing Debo here, and having the year, the second year of continuity with Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels' development. It was all about all the pieces of the puzzle together and not trying to rely on your special quarterback just to already carry the weight of the entire organization on his shoulders in year 2, when he's still developing, when he's still learning. Not to mention, it would hold back Jaden Daniels' development a little bit. Not so much because, I think there's always a little bit of confusion of like, oh, how a wide receiver develops a quarterback, or people try to say like Diggs developed Josh out, and it's like, no, but it does allow you to practice, and now I mean practice, not even only like a traditional practice, but even like actually like during the game, throws and types of offenses and type of plays that you need a certain level of skill to on the other side to the receiver essentially in this example to be able to do it, right? It's like if you don't have a wide receiver who can actually catch a ball that's thrown 45 yards down the field, when then your quarterback throughout his practice, throughout the games, is not going to be able to throw a 45-yard pass to a wide receiver because you don't have a receiver to catch the ball. And so now you can't hone in on that skill set. And right now in year 2 with Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels, they've had these conversations and they've talked about this. I forget if it was whether it was Cliff Kingsbury or Jaden Daniels, but they were just pretty much like, year 1 was very much just like, Cliff Kingsbury was pretty much like, let's just figure out what you're comfortable with and let's just stay here right now. Let's just stay what you're comfortable with. And in year 2, it's now we're expanding that. Now we're pushing that. We're going to reinforce what you're comfortable with, but let's explore some of these other things. Let's add more tools in the toolbox. Let's open things up a little bit. And that is very much a 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards type of thing. And if you remove a Terry McLaurin, you just inhibit that development. You inhibit that growth. And replacing him with a Debo is not it. It's just not. So even just from a developmental standpoint of helping facilitate and continue the progress of Jaden Daniels, a play like this is absolutely, a move like this is absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial. Which is why I kept comparing it to Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. Because it's like Patrick Mahomes is clearly great enough where he doesn't need a Tyreek Hill. But if you take away a Tyreek Hill from him after year 1 and say, okay, let's get after it, it's like you're inhibiting the growth, you're inhibiting the success. Like let's give it a minute or two. And this contract's perfect. And it's funny because I said, how about 3-year contracts? I said, what about that? Why can't it be this and go higher up in money? Don't do a 4 or 5 year contract. And it's like, that's what they landed on. Now, from at the moment of me filming this, we don't have any of the guaranteed. I just know that there's like a $30 million signing bonus, which is guaranteed. I don't know how much more is guaranteed after that. But ironically, and I've said this many times, like I'm no GM, I'm no capologist here, but it was always just like, what about like a shorter contract, but something that's a lot more heavily guaranteed, and there's not too much to worry about, because even if he falls off a cliff, which I don't think necessarily will happen, it's like you might be, even if Terry McLaurin by year 2 or year 3 is just not quite what he was these last couple of years, it's not like it's a difference of like, well, now you're paying $30 million for this wide receiver, and he's a $2 million receiver. It's like, no, maybe he's a $25 million receiver who now you're paying like, around $30 million. It's like, okay, so you're overpaying him a little bit, but like not the end of the world here, and not on the hook for another 3 years, another 2 years after that, where you're like, oh, now we have to really kind of keep, holding on to this. Like that's not the case here. Not the case. So I love this contract, and I think it's crucial from every perspective, every lens, every angle that you can look at it. Because I always talk about this, like, what lens are you looking at it through? Through the player lens, through the quarterback lens, through a fan lens, a team lens, a coaching lens, a GM lens. Like, there's all the different lenses that you can look at this through. And I think through every lens, like, this fits. This fits, and it still gives you the freedom and flexibility. Even if you're in a situation where, let's say he really falls off a cliff. Let's say this first year is like actually pretty good and he's great, but like not quite what they were able to do last year. And so now you're kind of like, uh-oh. And that following year, you're just like, man, like he's just clearly not the same. It's like you have 1 more year left, and you can move on to him. Someone will still want him, and you don't have to figure out how a trade works, or even if you have to cut him, and then it's like dead cap money. But it's like just a year, whatever. No big deal. You're not backed into a corner. You're not dealing with the consequences forever and ever and ever. And more likely, even if there is a decline, again, it's like he's a 1,500-yard receiver, and now the following year he's an 1,100-yard receiver. And it's like, okay. Not the end of the world. Not the difference between paying a receiver $2 million and $100 million. It's just, it's not the biggest deal. And you're also talking about a massive locker room and leadership guy, and someone who your quarterback, who you believe is going to be a mega superstar, who ideally you think will be a future Hall of Famer and will lead you to many Super Bowls. This guy's really important right now for the development. You don't have to try to play games with like trying to figure out a Debo. You don't have to try to figure out and play games with a young rookie who's like not quite yet. Like you surround him with the talent. Surround him with talent. It was the greatest gift that Mahomes got, having both Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, who had already been playing for years, who have already been getting settled within the NFL with Andy Reid. I mean, make no mistake about it, even Terry McLaurin is learning and getting to be developed by a Cliff Kingsbury and understanding what Cliff Kingsbury expects and wants and whatnot. Just like how we always talk about it through the quarterback lens. And Terry McLaurin, just how we talked about how the Commanders have had bad coaching and bad quarterback play, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, well, even someone like bringing in a Dan Quinn and a Cliff Kingsbury tremendously helps a Terry McLaurin as well. So I from just a continuity standpoint, even if we just boil it down to the most bare bones, basic take you possibly can, it's worth the money. Now, if the Commanders made the playoffs and they got knocked out first round or something like that, and like they had a really great season and it was fun, it was exciting, you feel like you're moving in the right direction, you're like, yeah, this is great, I feel like we're building something, pretty good here, then you could make the argument, maybe you want to be a little bit more aggressive in building your team and try a little bit of other things outside the box. But the reality is you had a tremendous amount of success. You obviously got to the NFC Championship game. Terry McLaurin and Jane Daniels obviously had an awesome connection. It's like, so let's just double, triple down on that, and let's let this thing cook. Let's let this thing bake in the oven for a minute or two. And now when we feel like we have a foundation, now when we feel that our quarterback is truly rooted and planted in the NFL, then we can start to try to think about other things about, what does my quarterback definitely need versus what can he be without, right? What can we do? Are we actually better at having some flexibility and some extra money so we can really boost up that defense or really get a beast mode of a running back, a big 1-2 punch, because Jane Daniels will make any receiver work. Or you know what? Actually, at the end of the day, all this kid needs is just one great wide receiver, just a half an extra second from an O-line perspective, and we good. We in business. Just don't have a defense that's a disaster, and we can hit the ground running. I mean, like it's all an exploratory process right now. And don't start taking away things before you actually even have a clear picture. So I'm a huge fan of this move. I love it, and I think it works. I don't think it's breaking the bank, and I think it's done in a way that everyone should, in theory, be happy, even if your biggest fear becomes a reality of Terry McLaurin being on the decline. As long as he doesn't fall off an absolute cliff, which I just don't see why that would just magically happen. It's perfect. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders agreeing to their 3-year deal worth up to $96 million? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.